Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Last episode, we talked about friendships and we touched into the fact that not everyone is so fortunate to have a big circle of friends and family. And that made us reflect even more. So today, we're diving into a topic that most people don't really like talking about. A topic that's kind of taboo, but yet so universal, and that's loneliness.
Yes. And, even just saying the word feels uncomfortable or sad in a way. It's like nobody wants to admit that they're lonely.
And I think maybe that's because if you say it out loud, people sometimes hear it as, oh, you must not have your life together, or that there is something wrong with you in a way. But in reality, loneliness is incredibly common. In Norway, surveys show that about 1 in 5 young people often feel lonely. And among students, the numbers are even higher. Close to 20% say they feel lonely a lot of the time. And even though loneliness among older people in Norway has actually gone down over the years, researchers warn it might rise again as more people live longer, often alone.
Hmm. In the US, the numbers are actually even higher. The Surgeon General actually went so far as to call loneliness an epidemic in 2023. Almost half of American adults report feeling lonely on a regular basis. And I imagine the pattern is similar in so many other countries too. And also, for those of you who don't know, the general surgeon is the leading public health spokesperson for the US federal government. Think of it as the nation's doctor in chief. So when the Surgeon General, calls loneliness an epidemic, it's meant to alert both citizens and policymakers that this is a serious health crisis, not just a private matter.
That, I must say, is shocking, but also not shocking, because I think if we're all really honest, we've all felt it at some point. It's a human and a global thing. And yet people almost whisper it like it's shameful.
Yeah, and it's kind of strange, isn't it? Because loneliness is really just a signal, your body's way of saying, I need connection. But instead of listening to it, most of us try to hide it as if it's something shameful.
And loneliness isn't only about being physically alone. You can feel lonely even when you're surrounded by people, especially now, maybe in today's modern life.
Mhm.
I've even heard of people who say they feel lonely in their own marriage, which really shows how deep this goes.
Yeah. And that's where grief sneaks in too, I guess, because loneliness isn't just the absence of people, it's the absence of belonging. It's almost like mourning something invisible.
That's so true. And really, we should be able to talk about this more openly because if we could, maybe it wouldn't carry so much shame. I really hate the shame feeling.
Mm, me too. Absolutely. And that is exactly why we're diving into this today.
Okay, first of all, something popped into my head because here in Norway, there was actually a recent political movement built around this very topic, loneliness. They didn't make it into the government or anything, but do you remember when Kåss Furuseth started Ensomhetspartiet, the loneliness party?
Yeah. And I must say, I loved it because if loneliness were a political party, everyone would be a member at some point in their lives, I think.
For sure.
But on a serious note, it's such a clever way to shine a light on something so important that we don't talk about enough, really. And for our non Norwegian listeners, Else, which is her name, is a well known Norwegian comedian, actress, and TV host. She's especially recognized for her humor mixed with vulnerability and for openly sharing personal experiences, including losing close family members to suicide. Maybe we can compare her with Ellen DeGeneres in her early days or Rosie O'Donnell. Amy Schumer. I don't know.
I don't know either. But I think what makes it so powerful is that it's not just a publicity stunt or a joke. Elsa has really lived through loneliness in such a raw, painful way. As you said, both her mother and her brother died by suicide. I mean,
Mhm.
just imagine carrying that kind of loss.
Yeah.
And instead of shutting it all away, she's chosen to be completely open about it. And you compared her to Ellen DeGeneres in her early days, Rosie O'Donnell or Amy Schumer, but honestly, I don't know if they really had to bring that kind of personal grief so directly into their comedy. Not that
Mhm.
I know that much about those three comedians and actors, but yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, Elsa mixes humor and heartbreak in a way that's uniquely hers, I feel like. She shows how loneliness, shame, and silence can become dangerous if we don't talk about them, and also that opening up can actually save lives.
I remember seeing her documentary regarding suicide. I think it's from 2018. And it was heartbreaking, but also hopeful because she has this way of using humor and honesty at the same time. Like she doesn't dress loneliness up in pretty words, but she also makes it less scary to talk about it.
And that's the thing. She kind of says, this is real and this is a part of me. And if I can say it out loud, maybe you can too. And I think that's such a gift.
It really is. And it makes me think how many people are out there carrying heavy loneliness, but never saying a word about it. Maybe even the people we think are the happiest.
Yeah, because loneliness doesn't always look like sitting alone in a dark room. It can be smiling at a party, laughing with people, but still feeling completely unseen.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think that's why Elsa's loneliness party was genius because she turned something heavy into something that we could all connect to, saying we're all in this whether we admit it or not.
Yeah, and it reminds me of what we're doing here too, just trying to open the door so people listening feel less alone in their own grief and loneliness, hopefully.
Hmm. You know what I find interesting? That loneliness itself has become kind of shameful to admit.
Yeah, it's like if you're saying I'm lonely, it's almost worse than saying I'm stressed or I'm tired.
Exactly. Stress is kind of a badge of honor these days, but loneliness, people think it makes you sound unpopular, unlovable, or even socially awkward.
Or like you failed somehow, failed to have enough friends or failed to build a family. And that shame just makes people hide even more, I think.
Right. Which is ironic because if we could just say it out loud, I'm lonely, then maybe someone else would admit it too. And then voila, you wouldn't be so alone anymore.
That's true. But
Mhm.
I think it taps into something really deep. We humans are wired to belong. For most of history, being outside the group was dangerous. It could mean you literally wouldn't survive. So maybe the shame around loneliness, it's like this ancient echo, our brain saying, something is wrong with me, I'm at risk, in a way.
That makes so much sense. And modern life just intensifies it because when you go on social media, you see everyone else living their best lives, the best part of their lives
Hmm.
parties, dinners, happy families. And you sit there thinking, why am I the only one left out?
Yeah, but of course, that's just a filtered version of reality. People don't post that much of their lonely evenings on Instagram.
No, that's the thing. They don't. Maybe we should start a trend. Hashtag lonely but honest.
Yeah, that would actually be refreshing. And I think the younger generations are a lot more honest about this nowadays. At least some are. But seriously, if loneliness is as common as research shows, and some surveys say up to 1 in 3 adults feel lonely regularly, then why are we still whispering about it?
Maybe because admitting loneliness makes us vulnerable, and we live in a culture that praises independence and strength. So to say I'm lonely feels like saying I need people, and we're not always good at needing.
That's so true. But maybe if we dared to be more honest, it could become less shameful. Imagine if we treated loneliness the same way we treat hunger. I'm hungry, I need food, or I'm lonely, I need connection.
Yeah, normalizing it would change everything because loneliness is not a personal failure, it's a human signal like hunger or thirst.
And if we could talk about it without shame, maybe fewer people would end up stuck in it. So, this brings me to something we've talked about a lot recently, you and I, your own experience with loneliness after moving away.
I mean, yeah, as some of our listeners might know, as we mentioned before, I made my first big move back in 2009. That was our biggest move, you can say, and our first one. My daughter was 7 at the time, and we moved from Norway to Canada to start a new life with my husband, who's Canadian. And I must say that it was exciting at first, planning everything, and I thought we were ready for it. And it was what we wanted, but it was also terrifying, and it got more terrifying as the time, crept up to the moving date. New country, new language, leaving behind family and friends and my whole support system and my job. And then just as I started finding my footing in Canada, we moved again, and this time to the USA.
Mhm.
And with every move, it feels like you have to start over again. Like, here we go again. If you watched
Mm,
Groundhog Day, that movie, it's kind of like that.
yeah. I remember watching you pack up and head off, and you looked excited and brave, but I could sense how hard it was for you underneath. I don't think we really talked much about the loneliness back then, though, did we?
No, not really. I mean, I feel like we've gotten better over the years talking about emotions and stuff. And yeah, I think we can say that it's never been my strength to be open about my feelings, to sit down and let's talk about how I feel. But yeah, it was very real. In the beginning, I only had my husband's family around me in Canada, which I was grateful for. But I didn't really have any friends of my own. Back in Norway, I had this big group of friends I'd known for years, and suddenly I felt like I had no one. My best friends were basically our sweet neighbors,
Hmm.
an older lady and her husband next door, and my husband's grandmother, Nana, that I also mentioned before. And, they're all very nice, and I love to hang out with them, but, your best friends should maybe not always or only be people in their 80s.
Yeah.
So I really missed having my friends around or having friends around. Plus, like my husband's friends' wives, for instance, they all had jobs, so they were at work, obviously, and had their own lives. So, yeah, it was hard. And I think I never really admitted to myself how lonely I actually was because I really wanted to make it work.
Yeah, I see that. But it must have been such a strange mix, being surrounded by kind people, but still feeling that somehow something was missing. And I guess
Yeah.
that's why you eventually turned to work, right? To find your own place and build some connections of your own.
Yeah. After a few years of living there, I was allowed to start working because that's a thing also, when you move to a country, especially if you're not the one who's getting the visa. I mean, this is too complicated to go into, but then maybe you're not allowed to work. But after a few years, I was allowed, and yeah,
Hmm.
that was to get out of the house and meet people.
And did it make a difference to get out of the house? I mean, meet people and so on.
Yeah, it felt mentally good for sure. I got colleagues. I made a few steps up in my job. And I also like my job. And I think the thing is, when you're out of the house for a few hours of the day, when you get up and get dressed and get out and see people, then you're more fine with it being quiet and family time coming home. You don't need that social part, maybe, because you had that at work, at least in some way.
Right. Yeah.
And then after 7 years, we moved again to Orlando in Florida. And after a few more years, again, we moved a little bit more south, closer to Miami. And I must say that we met many amazing people along the way. But when we moved to Miami, especially through my husband's work in soccer, I met 3 amazing women or wives of players and staff at the club. And they quickly became like sisters to me, like family, really. We had kids the same age, so that also helped connect us. But we did so much together. We celebrated Halloween, we had dinners, and we just hung out and had a good time. And I thought, finally, this is it. I have my people here. But you know how sport life is. Contracts end, families move, and one by one they all left. And suddenly there was that emptiness again for me.
Yeah, I remember that. Must have been so incredibly hard. And I must excuse my dog because I'm not alone here. I have this Frenchie snoring beside me. So
That's okay. She
hello to
probably
Selma.
felt sad for me or something.
Maybe. Yeah. But that must have been so incredibly hard. Or I know it was for you.
Yeah, it was. And of course, like I said, I met other incredible people along the way, and I don't want to take away from that. But let's be honest, making new friends as an adult is really hard. It's harder than when you're
Hmm.
young. It doesn't happen as easily as when you're a kid, when you just sit next to someone in school, then you're instantly best friends. As adults, it takes courage, energy, and a bit of luck, maybe sometimes. And when you already are feeling lonely, that energy can be the hardest thing to find.
Yeah, I get that. And I found some research on this too. One study in the US found that more than 70% of adults say it's difficult to make new friends after the age of 30. And I totally get that. When you're a kid, you just walk up and say, "Want to play?" As an adult, it's more like, should I awkwardly ask this person if they want to have a coffee, or is that too much too soon? When I think about it now, I think it's harder to find new friends than to actually find a new partner, or I don't know. But at least then you can go on dating apps and such.
Did you actually know that there's a friendship app?
Oh, that's nice.
There is. And I actually did download it when I lived in Orlando in the beginning.
Oh, you did. You never
I
told me.
did. I never told you that. And I didn't use I think it was so new, so it wasn't that settled, if I can say that, in or set in all the cities. So,
Hmm.
but it was a good idea. I don't even know.
Yeah,
I wonder if I have that app still on my phone. Not very good at cleaning my
go check
phone, but
after.
yeah. But I must also say that if you're not working outside the home, when you're a stay-at-home mom like me now, you don't automatically have those built-in social circles. You're not meeting coworkers every day. You kind of have to create connection from scratch.
That's also a thing. Yeah, because of course it would be easier for you if you had a workplace. Then you automatically meet new people, as you say. But of course, that also takes energy and courage and maybe a bit of luck too. But, anyways, that isn't the case now. So,
No, it isn't. It's just I'm thinking like, what would I even do at this point in my life, you know? And I also think here in America, it's more common to be home. Not that I'm trying to find excuses or anything, but it is more common. And you drive a lot, pick up.
hmm.
That's kind of getting used to that being my job, being an Uber driver and home chef and cleaning lady.
Yeah.
Guess that's my new title, but you never know.
And a podcast host also.
And a podcast host and editor. Yes.
Absolutely.
But anyways, on top of all this, last year was also very emotional because that's when my oldest daughter, maybe I mentioned this before too, she moved to Norway. We all went together for a summer holiday there, and she just stayed behind, which was super strange to just leave her and say bye. And that was a huge milestone in our family. I mean, we've been so lucky to have her home with us for so long. But now the time was there, and I am so proud of her, of course, but it also broke my heart a little. I mean, it's on the other side of the world, so she is far away. And suddenly the house just feels so different, so quiet and empty, and the distance feel, bigger.
So you're kind of juggling the pride of seeing her independent and the grief of her not being at home anymore. It's quite natural.
Yeah. And with her all the way across the ocean, my own loneliness became louder. Me and her used to do so many things together, which I'm lucky that she wanted to do that with me. But now I started worrying about her, if she was lonely, if she's okay. It's strange because even though I'm surrounded by the rest of our family here, there are days that it still feels isolating, I must admit.
And that's so real. And it shows how layered loneliness is actually. It's not just about physical isolation, it's about emotional connections, about feeling seen and understood also.
Yes, and for me, the contrast of that really hits after summers in Norway. There, I'm constantly surrounded with family and friends and just hanging out and doing trips. And, I feel like I don't really have time to sit still. It's go, go, go. And it gives me a lot of energy, I must admit.
Really does.
And yeah, and then after I come back here and it's quiet, it just feels too quiet. It's like back to this. It feels like going from a crowded, warm room to an empty one in an instant. It's really strange feeling, actually.
Makes so much sense. And I think many people listening will recognize that, even if they haven't moved abroad. It's like after the holidays when everyone leaves and suddenly the house feels too big.
Yeah, and I guess that it's just like that. And that also means that you have so many things in life that you have to be thankful for. I mean, that's what I'm thinking. I
Yeah.
live for those times where I get so much energy in the summer, and then it feels more okay to come home and relax and have quiet time. And then I just look forward to the next time.
Always the positive one.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
then I think that's why it's also so important to talk about loneliness, because naming it takes away from some of its power in a way. And then maybe you realize that I'm not broken, I'm just human.
And maybe that's our big message today. Loneliness is not a weakness, it's not something to be ashamed of. It's part of being human. And if you're listening right now and feeling lonely, you're not alone in that.
Yes. And I also say don't underestimate the small steps. Saying yes to coffee if somebody asks you, joining a group, reaching out to people, and maybe also dare to be open for that. It doesn't fix everything, but it can open doors.
Of course, it can. And maybe remembering that friendships don't have to look like they did in childhood either. Sometimes adult friendships take longer to build, but they can be just as deep and beautiful.
Exactly. And even if people move away, those connections still matter. They've shaped me, carried me, and they remind me that I'm not actually alone in this world. We still catch up on the phone, but it is different when they are not around here.
Of course, it's different. And thank God for technology like
Mm.
FaceTime and such. It makes it all a bit easier to stay connected. And I must say, honestly, that's what this podcast is too, a place where we can say the quiet and shameful things out loud and maybe even bring more openness to these difficult topics.
Yes. To remind people that even in loneliness, there's connection. Like Else's party, for instance. Of course, it helps to already be a public figure like her. But the point is that reaching out, creating spaces where people can meet, that matters. We can all do that in our own way. Invite someone in, make room at the table, or just send that message. Small gestures can mean the world.
I've also been reflecting on today's society in connection with loneliness. How does the world look today, really? More and more people are lonely, but why? What has happened in our modern world?
Yeah, that is a big one. I think about it a lot too, actually, and it feels like we live in a time where we're connected all the time, through phones, social media, Zoom meetings, FaceTime. But at the same time, many people are more isolated than ever.
Exactly. I mean, everywhere you go, people are looking down at their phones. Sometimes I think half the world is walking around with a permanent hunchback, just waiting to crash into whatever's in front of them while watching reels and scrolling literally everywhere. And the sad part is they're missing out on so much, I feel like. It's quite sad to see, really.
Hmm.
I heard a podcast the other day where they mentioned that in Korea, they even made a special lane in the pavement at crosswalks so people can keep staring at their screens while they walk. They've even put lights in the ground, and I mean,
Or should I say impressive and depressing at the same time?
right? But what does that do to our sense of community? People don't meet each other's eyes anymore. When you're out walking, no one looks at you. And when we lose that small, everyday human contact, I think loneliness grows.
I totally agree. Research also backs this up. Studies show that eye contact releases oxytocin, the so called bonding hormone, which makes us feel connected and safe. And when we lose those micro moments of connection, it can contribute to feeling more alone.
That makes so much sense. I mean, when I smile at a stranger and they smile back, I feel better after. But if everyone is looking down into a screen, poof, that connection is gone.
Mm-hmm. And social media kind of gives us this illusion of being connected, though. You can have hundreds of friends online, but still sit alone on a Friday night and feel like no one really sees you.
Yeah, and I think that's the paradox of our time. We've never been so reachable and at the same time so lonely.
That is actually so sad. And
Mm.
as we said in the beginning, loneliness is now considered a public health issue. In fact, the US surgeon also warned in 2023 that loneliness is as harmful to our health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And that's pretty scary.
That says it all. So maybe putting down the phone and actually saying hello to the person next to you could literally save your health or contribute at least.
Or at least save your day or somebody else's.
Yeah, maybe we should challenge our listeners. Next time you're walking down the street, look up, meet someone's eyes, maybe even smile and say hello.
Mhm.
Who knows? You might brighten their day and your own.
And if you're in Korea or somewhere else in the world with stoplights on the ground, just don't get run over.
No. You know, when we talk about loneliness, I can't help but connect it to grief and sorrow too, because when you lose someone, the loneliness becomes so much deeper.
Yeah, that's totally understandable. And it's not just about being physically alone, is it? It's that empty space, that that person used to feel. Even if you're surrounded by people, you can still feel that loneliness and grief.
It's so true. And I think that's something maybe many don't understand. You can sit in a room full of family and friends and still feel completely alone because the one you really want to share life with isn't there.
Hmm. And it's interesting how loneliness and grief share some of the same physical effects on the body. Research show both can increase stress hormones, weaken the immune system, even affect heart health. It's not just in your head.
No, and that's important to say out loud. It's not weakness, it's biology. The body literally feels the absence of connection, and grief is really the most brutal form of loneliness, isn't it? Because no one else can carry that loss with you or for you.
True. And yet, I think there's a difference between being lonely in grief and being alone in grief. Loneliness is that aching, unwanted isolation, but being alone can sometimes also be a choice, a way of processing.
That's such a good point. I remember in my own grief, sometimes I needed to be alone, and other times I desperately needed people, and it wasn't always predictable.
Right. And that's why it's so important that we as a society don't just assume we know what someone needs. We need to ask and to listen because loneliness can intensify sorrow, but real connection, even small moments of eye contact, like we said earlier, can ease it a little.
I love that. So maybe the antidote to both loneliness and grief is presence, not fixing, not giving advice, but being truly present, as we keep repeating.
Yes, presence instead of pressure.
Exactly. I just remembered something else we talked about the other day. TV shows. Remember when you
Mhm.
finally started watching Pernie, or Pernille, as it's called in the US?
Yeah. One of my friends texted in our um, friends group chat that she loved it. So I thought, okay, now I will give it a try. And actually, maybe I should be embarrassed to say this. A week and a half later, I finished all 5 seasons. They're very short episodes, I must say. But yeah, honestly, I think it's one of the best shows I've seen.
Right? I told you ages ago. We even talked about it here, but no, you didn't trust me enough to start it.
I did trust you, actually. I just forgot
Okay.
until she reminded me. And it also wasn't on Netflix before, but now it is. So I was
Okay.
happy to see that.
Mhm.
And I must say that you were also right. It really is about grief and life in the most natural and unpolished way.
Yeah, it's such a good series. But also, it
Mm.
really ties into what we're talking about today, I feel like. Because in Pernie, loneliness is such a big theme. She is surrounded by family and still feels alone at times. And I think that's something many people can relate to. Loneliness doesn't always mean being physically alone, as we touched into before.
Mm. That shows captures it so well. She has her kids, her dad, her best friends, but still she often feels unseen and overwhelmed. I guess maybe that's why she keeps calling her sister. And isn't that so often how loneliness works? It sneaks in even when you technically have people.
Yeah, and I think that's why people connect so strongly with it because seeing loneliness portrayed on screen makes it less taboo and less shameful, also. It gives words and images to something many of us have felt but never maybe dared to say out loud.
Right. Sometimes just watching a story like that can make you feel a little less isolated. Like, okay, it's not just me, other people feel this too. I mean, the way the main character, Pernilla, also keeps, like I said, calling her sister who passed away. It was heartbreaking, but also strangely comforting.
Yeah, and her family kept telling her to stop calling her,
Mhm.
also saying her sister wouldn't have wanted her to call and such. But for her, it was a way to stay connected, I guess. And it was so raw and unfiltered, those scenes. The whole show, really. I mean, grief and life, come on, it's all there.
It is such a beautiful and for me also addictive TV show. I just got dragged into their lives. Just feels super real, I think I would say.
Yeah, if you watched everything in just
Mhm.
a week and a half,
Yes, felt
yeah,
very real.
makes sense.
And I also get why she wanted to call her sister. Because if I'd always called someone every day, I think I would keep doing it too, just to feel close to them still, even if they couldn't answer. I guess that's grief, but also loneliness, the loneliness of missing the person you always shared your life with.
That's true. And I, of course, also get that it must be comforting to still call her sister, totally. But it can also just take over. I mean, take control and hold you back in a way. Grief itself can be so lonely, as we said, even when people around you are supportive, also. There is this private, quiet part of grief that nobody else can carry. And I think this part in the TV show symbolizes that in a great way because she is kind of shameful of this, the voicemail calling, and it's a lonely thing for sure.
Yeah, maybe you're right. And that show made it feel so real, like literally everything.
For me, I especially related to her brother in law, I must say, the widower. Losing a spouse is such a lonely experience, and I think the show captured that so well, especially later when he tried to move on and all that.
And at the same time, it also showed everyday life, raising kids, being frustrated, all the drama that comes with it. It just made me think about my own teenagers. Some moments I thought, oh, yes, that's exactly how it feels. I even learned a thing or two from her parenting style, I would say.
So Netflix has a parenting class also, you say?
Basically, yes, because she stayed so calm in moments where I probably would be so upset. So I thought, okay, calmness is key. But honestly, it's rare to see loneliness and grief portrayed that honest on TV. And it reminded me that even in grief, staying connected, whether by calling someone who's gone or just talking about it, matters.
And I think that circles us back to today's theme. Loneliness isn't weakness, whether it's expat life, friendships that come and go, or grief that feels too quiet. It's just human, and when we share it, it feels a little less heavy.
Yeah, because loneliness loves silence, but connection breaks it.
Perfectly said. And such a good reminder, also, sister. So, before we wrap up, I think it's important that we also talk a little about what we can actually do if we're feeling lonely. Because, yes, it's human, it's normal, but what then?
Yes, I mean, loneliness doesn't magically disappear just because you acknowledge it, but I've learned a few things that help me, like in my everyday loneliness, maybe I can call it. Like trying to keep a routine, for instance, when I feel like just curling up and staying home. Then I go for a walk, or I do this. I try to do this every day. The kids go to school, I go for a walk, and then I try to go to the gym. And I also try to stay open to new connections. I say yes to invites. Sometimes even going grocery shopping at the same time each week can open up for new connections. You never know. It
Hmm,
sounds so small, but routines create structure, and structure, I think, makes space for connection.
I think that's a good point.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's about lowering the bar also. You don't need to find a new best friend right away. It can start with something as simple as a smile to your neighbor, a chat with someone at the coffee shop, or just sending a quick text to someone you haven't spoken to in a while, or just start to look up, as we said, also from your phone or your screen.
Yeah. Maybe for some people, writing things down can also help. Isn't journaling a big thing these days?
Yeah.
I actually think that it could help. But for me, I think talking about it works better personally, like we do now. But journaling can maybe be a good thing. For instance, when you're feeling lonely, maybe start by writing things down, things that you did that day, just to clear your head, or maybe even the feeling that you have at that exact moment. And later, when you read it back, if you have that same feeling one day, you realize that, okay, this feeling passed, and that can give you hope for the next time, maybe.
Yeah, I love that. I think journaling is a great idea.
Hmm.
Also, being honest with the people around us. I mean, it can feel so vulnerable to say, hey, I'm feeling a bit lonely, because usually people are kinder and more understanding than we expect. I really believe that.
Hmm. And on the other side, if you're someone who doesn't feel lonely at the moment, maybe just take that as a reminder to reach out to people. Check in on a friend, invite someone over, send that silly meme because we
Hmm.
never know what someone is carrying quietly.
Yeah, loneliness is everyone's business, really. It doesn't only belong to the person who feels it, it's a shared responsibility to build those small bridges.
Yes, and those bridges don't need to be big or dramatic. They can be as simple as, do you want to go for a walk? Or can I call you later? And actually call though, not
Yeah,
just say it.
yeah, small steps, as you say.
And it's definitely easier for some people to make friends than others. For me, I often feel really awkward when I don't know anyone. I feel like I always say the wrong thing, and then I always think it over. Oh, I should have said this and this. I actually still do this even though I'm over 40, but it's a thing that I do. But I think it is important to push yourself a little, to step outside the comfort zone even when it feels uncomfortable. And then there are also usually groups or activities that you can join as well. For instance, I went to my daughter's back to school the other night, and one of her teachers says that she was an art volunteer, that she had classes that was free for people to sign up to. And then I was thinking, oh, maybe that's something I should do.
That's a great
So
idea.
people can sign up and go there and learn art or do something, make something, anything. Could be, like I said, art, could be the gym, it could be dance,
Yeah,
anything. There are lots of opportunities out there.
that's such a good point. And I can totally relate to what you're saying about the awkwardness.
Oh yeah, awkward sisters. No,
Hmm.
I don't think we are. I think we're nice and fun.
Of course. Yes, yes, yes.
But honestly, I feel like I live a little bit for the summers and all the visits. I gain so much energy from that because the rest of the year I spend a lot of time on my own. So I appreciate it even more when those moments finally come around. Well, I like to have something to look forward to, I can say.
Yeah, that's a good thing. And I
Hmm.
think a lot of people will relate to what we're saying about that mix of awkwardness and still wanting connection. And I think it's brave to admit it, and even braver to actually do something about it. Like you said, joining art class or just showing up somewhere new.
When we're talking about it, I actually did sign up when I lived in Orlando too. I signed up for a flower arrangement class in our neighborhood with wine. Glass
You
of
did?
wine was included, and you learn how to arrange flowers beautifully. And I didn't know anyone, and I went by myself. I think that's the first time I've done something like that where I've met up completely alone, but it was fun.
And not to front drinking or alcohol, but maybe it's a bit easier when you have a glass of wine
Maybe, at least it
from
was fun.
time to time.
Flowers and wine. It was fun.
But as you said, you're right about the summers and visits too, because I think when you've been alone a lot, those moments of togetherness feel even more precious. It's like you maybe soak up every bit of energy from them. Maybe that's one of the gifts of loneliness, also. It teaches us not to take connections for granted. And I think loneliness isn't something to be ashamed of. It's part of being human. We all feel it from time to time. Like we talked about here, moving abroad, losing someone. Sitting in a crowded room and still feeling invisible. It takes different shapes, but it's the same longing for connection.
Yes, and I think that's what we learned through our own experiences, through people like Kåss Furuseth, even through a TV show like Perny, is that the moment we dare to name it, it starts to loosen its grip. I know I keep mentioning this TV show, but I really recommend you all to go watch it if you have time to binge a TV show. It is really so good and important also.
I concur.
Mhm.
And as a Norwegian, at least, I don't know if this TV show is for everyone, but try it out. We love it. And also, as you say, naming it and say it out loud, I am lonely. Dare to be open, that makes space for others to step in. It gives them the chance to say, me too, or to reach out. So dare to be open.
Hmm. And maybe that's the real antidote to loneliness. Not 1,000 friends, not filling every empty moment with noise, but just one honest connection. One person you can share yourself with, even if it's clumsy or awkward.
Yeah. And for those listening right now who might be in the middle of that heavy, quiet loneliness, you don't have to be ashamed. Please don't. You're not the only one. And you don't have to carry it alone.
No. Reach out to someone you trust, a family member, a coworker, a former friend, even through your social media. Send that message, ask for that coffee, or even just, say the words, I feel lonely. It's amazing how those 3 words can maybe open a door.
And if there isn't someone nearby, know that this little space, this very podcast, is also meant to be a reminder that you're seen, you're thought of, you're part of something bigger. It might not be the best of help, but hearing this might give some comfort and also hopefully the courage to change from shame to shine.
Oh, wow. From shame to shine. That's a new one.
Yeah.
I love that. But yes, we are here, and chances are someone else is listening that is nodding right along with you.
So let's end with this. Loneliness is part of life, but connection is too. And even if it feels far away right now, it's never out of reach. Never.
Beautifully said. And maybe, just maybe, by sharing these stories and reflections, we've made the world a tiny bit less lonely today.
That's our hope, always. So until next time, take care of yourselves and remember, you're not alone in feeling alone.
That's right.
Nina had a dream, all black and white. We were talking in English, yeah, that ain't right. Two Norwegian sisters miles apart, but that dream lit a fire, put a mic to the heart. Katrine's in the States, Nina's back home. Two voices, one mission through the microphone. Grief in life, the highs and the lows. We hit record, uh-oh, where the file go? Oh, we fumble, we stumble, but baby we shine. Lost the intro, never mind. Wi-Fi shaky, cables crossed, but our hearts stay strong, no moment lost. From a dream to the mic, now the world can hear. Two sisters telling truths with a laugh and a tear. We live, we learn, we sip, we sigh. Talking love, talking lost, let the echoes fly. Grief walks in, pulls up a chair, says I'll stay a while, yeah, life ain't fair. But we mix it with laughter, a toast in hand, finding light where the dark still stands. Ba-da-da-boo-doo, is this thing on? Mic's on mute, oh well, move along. Ba-ba-dee, ba-ba-da, take two. Oops, too late, let's laugh it through. From a dream to the mic, now the world can hear. Two sisters telling truths with a laugh and a tear. We live, we learn, we sip, we sigh. Talking love, talking lost, let the echoes fly. So plug in, lean in, let's take our time. No script, no filters, just rhythm and rhyme. We're here, we're now, Two sisters, one dream. On the mic we shine.